Hello, happy Sunday. Thank you for being here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Appreciate those of you that show up in any capacity that you're able to, as always. So, welcome to our astrological meditation circle. If you're new here and you haven't already, subscribe to the channel so that way you get notifications for when we go live every Sunday night. Weekly videos on Saturdays. That was released yesterday, so if you haven't seen that already, you can go back and take a look at that. The weekly intention is released on Fridays. You can find that on social media, so Facebook and Instagram. That weekly intention is completely guided by the astrology and what's going on in the sky, and it's a phrase that, considering everything that is going on, that kind of comes into form, and then you can have that to contemplate on, sit with as you go through the weekly video. My hope is that you can get some really good things from our session here, but I also know that there are some very, very good things that you can get from your own contemplations that I have no possible way of delivering to you. So bringing all of it together and then sitting through the process and going through all these different steps, and therefore spending like a little bit of time with the transits, with the astrology, contemplating how it's playing out in your lives. There's a relationship that starts to build. And when you do that week after week, month after month, year after year, there is a relationship that builds and strengthens. You start to have conversations with what's going on. You start to see things in a different way, in a different perspective, and it's really unique and it's individual to all of us, I am sure. So yeah, thank you for being here, and if you haven't seen the weekly video, go ahead and check that out. That goes into much more detail about the transits. We might not even always talk about all of the transits here either. We might just talk about the key ones. Sometimes we talk about all of them, but not always. Yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and put the intention up here. I'm looking in the comments. Hi, Melissa. Thanks for being here, even when you're on vacation. I know that Melissa is traveling and she's in a nice warm place right now by the water, which is great because we're going to be talking about more water, just like we have been for quite some time. So this is our intention for this week. I see a process of reintegration. I see a process of reintegration. Now, whether or not this is the first time you've heard these words, let's take just a moment to sit with it and just see what comes up when you hear these words. Any thoughts, any feelings, any emotions, anything that it makes you want to gravitate towards and move away from, anything at all, any thoughts, whatever pings into your head. And while we're at it, if you want to change anything with the intention, feel free to add words, change words. I've played around with changing the phrases into a question. The re part of the integration here has to do with the Mercury retrograde, Jupiter's retrograde as well. So you could also say, I see a process of integration. You could be a little more affirmative. There is a process of integration. I like to formulate this as I see a process of reintegration, because I don't assume that we are all on the same level, same page. Maybe level is not the right word. We're not all having the same experiences, right? We are all different beings having different lives, and we all have different birth charts. So everything that is happening, even though there is an archetypal umbrella that is above all of us, that is symbolizing things, it's playing out for all of us in different ways, different areas of life. Some of us, it's a little bit stronger than others. Some of us, it depends on if it's hitting a sensitive point in our charts. For some of us, we have other transits that are way louder than what's going on, or there's multiple things that are going on, and then it makes it a little bit harder to, decipher exactly what's going on. So it's totally relevant and okay to change the intention if you need to. I've also said 100 times that this isn't the only intention we could come up with, right? For the same reason of all of the things that I just listed, any one transit can play out many different ways. There is a multitude of ways and a multivalent symbolic spectrum that any transit and any placement can fall on. To me, that builds more of a cause for astrology not being causal, it being more symbolic. Because if it was causal, it feels like, you know, A causes B. If you put heat to something, it heats up. You know, you put cold to something, it cools down, kind of like that. So yeah, feel free to change the words and anything else that resonates with you. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the astrology. We're going to get right into it. I'm going to go ahead and put the chart up like we've been doing for a while. If looking at the chart is overwhelming, look away. I encourage you to take it in whatever bite-sized pieces that works for you, and that goes for this whole session and this whole meditation. You know, take what works, take what resonates, and leave the rest. That is part of the benefit of doing these from our own personal space, but doing them together is we can come together and we can come to this collective space, but we can do whatever it is that we need to do for ourselves, right? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put the chart up. This is the chart of the moment. It's set to my location in the Eastern time zone. So if you were to pull this up, depending on how far away you live from me, the placements could be different as far as the houses, you know, what sign is on the rising sign, what is on the descendant, but the placements and the degrees are going to be the same. So this is the chart of where we are right now. If you look in the 6th house, you'll see that the sun has ingressed into the sign of Sagittarius since the last time we were together here last week. So happy birthday to all of you Sagittarius suns that are out there. It is your season. And now we have Mars and Sun both in Sagittarius. Venus will make her way in there next week, and then Mercury will make its way in there like the week after that. So we're going to start moving towards much more Sagittarian energy. So we're going to start shifting from talking about so much Scorpio as these personal planets start to move on, especially as Mercury goes direct in a week from now, next Sunday. And then Venus will move in there, and then Mercury will move into there. So we're going to be starting to round out with the Scorpio energy, and that's going to start to tidy up this water trine energy for the exact trine. We will talk more about that in the coming weeks as these planets move into the sign of Sagittarius. This week, notice that Mercury and Venus are close to each other in the sign of Scorpio. You can see that in the 5th house. They are just 2 degrees away from each other, and they're going to conjoin in a couple days here. So if we go ahead and move this chart forward here just a couple days, to tomorrow night here, you'll see that Mercury and Venus conjoin. Through this weekend, Mercury, it's just coming off of it now at this time, but Mercury has made its way through that grand water trine once more. So you can see Jupiter in the 1st house at 24 degrees of Cancer. You can see Saturn at 25 degrees of Pisces. These are the planets that we have been talking about being the stable legs of this grand water trine. And then the personal planets that have been moving through the sign of Scorpio have been pinging or activating this grand water trine. So Mercury has come back into the sign of Scorpio. It has moved back through that grand water trine space. Really, I don't feel like it leaves that space, because when Mercury stations to go direct, it's at like 20 degrees. Let me just go ahead and move this forward to the beginning of next week. Yeah, this is next Sunday that we'll be looking at. Mercury is stationing at 20 degrees of Scorpio. So it's stationing 4 degrees off the conjunction with Jupiter, 5 degrees off the conjunction with Saturn. With how drawn out and how long this trine energy has been through the fall, we've been talking about it through October, we've been talking about it through all of November. I think it's fair to say that Mercury is in that water trine space until it moves beyond those degrees and starts to separate. Because at this point, it's applying, it shifts direction and it starts to change to move forward. So I'm going to go ahead and say that Mercury's in that trine energy for the next couple weeks. If I go ahead and bring it kind of back to where we are here this week, we go forward, we have Venus and Mercury coming together, and then Venus is going to move forward as Mercury continues to move back, and she's going to move into that grand water trine space. So we're looking here on Tuesday. She is making the trine to Jupiter at 24 degrees, and then if we bop forward one more day, she's going to make that exact trine to Saturn. Being that they're just a degree off, I'm still looking at this as a whole. We can break down the transits. We do a little bit of that in the weekly video. We're not necessarily going to do that here today, though. Saturn also goes direct later on this week. After Venus starts to separate from the grand water trine, she's going to make her way into a trine with Neptune, which is at 29 degrees of Pisces, so just as she moves away from Saturn. At that same time, she's going to be making an opposition to Uranus. Again, we break all this down in the weekly video. So this is where we end on Saturday with a little bit of a ping here. So that is the astrology that we are looking at for this week to go with the intention. That grand water trine is being reactivated by Mercury and by Venus. Venus is the last planet to go through that space that hasn't already been to that space. Mercury is revisiting because it went through that space with Mars, and I talk a little bit about that in the video about how now Mercury is co-present with Venus, and before it was co-present with Mars, so maybe it was a little bit more hot-headed before. So Venus makes her way, so Mercury makes its way through that grand water trine space, conjoins Venus. Venus makes her way through that grand water trine space. Saturn goes direct. So there's no more inward focus of Saturn's retrograde period. And then Venus trines Neptune and opposes Uranus at the same time. Our intention this week, I see a process of reintegration. I'm thinking about the fact that Mercury has been in this space before. Like I said, it was in this space with Mars, moved forward into the sign of Sagittarius, made its way to 6 degrees of Sag. It's a Jupiter-ruled sign. I feel like Mercury was in Sagittarius just long enough to pick up a little hopefulness, pick up a little bit of that Sagittarian optimism, or that, just kind of down for whatever is coming. Like, we're going to deal with whatever's coming. It's fine. Like, this is the thing we're doing, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the thing. It has this way of going forward, even if things are a little bit dark. If you think about where Sagittarius is in the zodiacal solar year, it's in part of the darkest place of the year. Yes, it's about to hand over to light as we make our way to 0 Capricorn. We have the winter solstice, so then the light slowly starts to come back. That's that building, that growing, and that climbing up the mountain that we see in the sign of Capricorn. So Sagittarius is in the dark. It's in the place where we have the darkest days, and we have the longest, the least amount of daylight, and the longest dark. And it's growing. The dark is increasing, but that light is there. We can see where the light is going to start to come back. So you have this optimism, even within a difficult space in the sign of Sagittarius. So Mercury maybe picked something up, picked up a little bit of insight, a little knowledge, a little wisdom, maybe a little optimism, a little hopefulness, some sort of little pick-me-up, maybe. Mercury in Sagittarius is considered to be in its detriment. It's opposite its sign of Gemini, so it's not necessarily a place where Mercury likes to be, but Mercury has been spending so much time in Scorpio in the depths that it feels like Sagittarius gives it a little bit of a lift in a way, okay? So now as Mercury has come back to this space, it can now reintegrate what was brought up the first time that it came around. When we see things through retrograde, or just in life, when you experience something the first time, it can kind of throw you off. And then, maybe you go back and you experience the thing again. You could think about like doing a new activity or something like that. I don't know. Right now I'm thinking about how I was looking up information on like float pods and like floating in like sensory deprivation chambers and things like that. Like that's becoming a little bit more a widespread thing. And when I was looking on a website for a place nearby, it says that you have to, the first session that you go to, you will experience benefits. But the second time you go, you allow yourself to relax a little bit more. And by the third time or the fourth time, you really get the full experience because your body knows what to expect. You're able to allow yourself to relax a little bit more. Multiple passes of planets can be the exact same way. So Mercury is now back into this space where it was once before, but maybe hopefully it picked up something along the way. So now we're back. Now we're back to the depths. Now we're back to the place where we are exploring all of the water things, right? The emotions, the origins and the connections, the memory body, the conscious and the subconscious mind, all of these water things that we've been talking about for weeks and weeks, both here and on the weekly video. It feels helpful. It feels like Mercury picked up something that will allow it to come back and start an integration process, reintegrating, reconfiguring, and maybe moving things around in a little bit of a way. Mercury experienced something, gained some sort of insights, some sort of contemplation. Now it's back to rearrange. So maybe now, okay, I see what I need to do to handle the emotions that have been coming up, the relational turmoil maybe that has been coming up. Maybe it's really good things that have been coming up for you. Maybe you've been creating lots of connections and relationships, and you've been connecting with people you haven't in a long time, and you're exploring your subconscious mind, and you're uncovering things from the depths, and it might be a lot, but it feels freeing in some sort of way, or the creative flow and passion is just coming your way, and you're feeling very, very inspired. You're feeling very connected. You're feeling maybe otherworldly connected. These are all water type things that are possible. Lots of other possibilities as well. But maybe you didn't know exactly what to do with what was coming up the first time. You've had to go through a little bit of a process, a little bit of experience. Now Mercury is back. Planet of our mind, thoughts, communications, perceptions, all of these mental realm things. And it can start that reintegration process, right? It can start the process of bringing things together and starting to look at all the little pieces and see how we can arrange them, to fit together. And then Mercury and Venus come together, right? Just off of this space. The mental sphere meets our desires and our longings. It's the sign of Scorpio, so things are deep. We may be looking for real, raw conversations around what we desire, what we want, what we really need to be able to get to where it is that we're trying to be, where we're trying to go, where we're trying to create, and what the trines are. This water trine, all of the water houses have been activated for all of us for the last couple months here. So there are definitely things that have been swirling. Some of us, it's been a little stronger than others, like I mentioned earlier. But no matter what your rising sign is, you have a water sign on one of your angles. So the personal sphere, the career, the public sphere, the private, the family, the internal sphere, the relational sphere, one of those are being activated by one of these water signs for all of us. So there is a potential that it has hit all of us in some sort of deeply impactful way. Again, some more than others. There's a message that comes across when Mercury comes into contact with Venus. And it's a message of bringing things together, bringing together small little pieces. Maybe in the sign of Scorpio, it's bringing together small little pieces of things that we haven't looked at before, things that were tucked away in the dark, right? Things that maybe we've forgotten about or we've tried to turn away from. Mercury's already been through this space. Venus has been, has had to adjust to the space that she's in. But now she finds this messenger coming through this deep, dark space with a little bit more insight. And I think with Mercury going through that space, coming in, talking with Venus, and then Venus going through that space, whatever Mercury has to say to Venus is probably something that's going to be helpful as she makes her way into this trine space, right? It's like speaking with somebody who has already done the thing that you're trying to do. Oh, I'm going to ride this roller coaster. Well, somebody's coming off of it and they tell you, all about it, and where the little secret cameras are that take your picture, and where the big things are, and all of that type of stuff. They give you little tidbits about take your sunglasses off your head or something like that. Venus moves through the grand water trine space. And it feels like this is a soothing transit coming through here. Soothing to Venus because she's been in the place of her detriment. She's in the opposite of her home sign, the sign of Taurus. Soothing for all that the water has brought up, because we've talked a lot about how the water brings up that which accumulates. And there's a lot of really good things in water. There's a lot of healing, but when there's a lot of healing, that means that there's a space that needs to be healed, right? So maybe if the water has stirred up some emotions, maybe it has stirred up some family ancestral type things. Maybe it looks at your own personal origins and it has brought up some things within you from previous experience of this life that you've realized have brought in conditionings for you, or reaching back into the past lives, reaching into our ancestral things. A lot of us have tender spaces there for sure, whether it's that we've lost somebody or there's difficult relationships, or whatever the ancestral karma is. We all have that in both maybe positive and a little bit more difficult ways. So Venus coming through there feels like she has the ability to relax an overstimulated emotional system. She has the ability perhaps to unify what has come up in the water spaces, right? She unifies. She likes to bring cohesion. She brings up her desires and what she wants. So maybe now, as she's coming into this space after contacting Mercury, maybe we are able to voice where we feel, or where we are within this whole situation that is going on here in the water spaces. So as she's able to come through here and heal, and to, I feel like, bring another leg of the reintegration, right? So like if the systems and the structures and the beliefs and the tender spaces of water have been ruffled a little bit, maybe there's a little bit of waves that have been made. There's ripples and they've turned into waves. Maybe they've turned into something bigger. Hopefully they haven't like turned into tsunamis or anything like that, but it's totally possible for some of us. Now Venus comes through here. It was Mars, it was Mercury, it was the sun. Now it's Venus. Now it's Venus who brings things together and unifies. So the things that she has discovered in the sign of Scorpio, they may be deep, they may be raw, they may even be a little bit painful. But now she's coming into this space that's offering healing. And she likes to offer healing too. So if Venus is looking into the space of healing from her perspective, maybe it comes from her experiences and the depth that she's discovered in the sign of Scorpio. There's a lot of people that are very helpful because they know what it's like to be in a difficult space. So that's kind of the space that Venus might be in right now. And then as she moves away from that grand water trine, she comes into the trine with Neptune and with Uranus. If the trine has been telling us, if the grand water trine with Jupiter and Saturn has been telling us that things need to shift, things need to change, there has an accumulation. I feel like a big part of this grand water trine's energy is flushing out impurities, bringing things to the surface that have accumulated. We've talked a lot about that, right? Like water has to do with like that which accumulates. So we have our memories, we have our family and our origins. Our family heritage starts to accumulate. Like there's more people that are being born with every generation. Our emotions, they start to accumulate within our body. If we hold on to emotions, we can physically feel them within our being here. So now Venus is in a position where, coming from that space of healing, coming from offering some sort of unity, some sort of cohesion, maybe offering a little bit of a salve. I think in the weekly video I said like offering a little bit of chamomile to an over-caffeinated space, right? Like I know what it's like to drink too much coffee and then I need to kind of cool it down and temper it with something else. She's in a space where she is empowered to change, right? Uranus likes to shift change. It's the revolution. It's the revolt. It's shifting change suddenly. Neptune dissolves the boundaries. It allows us, when Neptune and Venus come together in any sort of aspect, but especially the trine, and from a water trine, there is such creative energy and flow, such creative romantic energy of wanting to create something that we feel so deeply within us, right? And when you feel something so deeply, it's like nothing else matters. The boundaries start to drift away. So you become that thing, and you let yourself fully be intoxicated by that thing and fully enveloped within that thing. It can go overboard, but it can also be something that really inspires us and lights us up and motivates us. So this is all happening at the 29th degree here. There's a shift that is coming. There's a shift that is indicated by the contact with Uranus, but there's also the shift that is indicated by it happening at the 29th degree. Neptune allows things to shift subtly to where maybe we don't really notice they start to shift until after they've already shifted. So there is potential for big shifts for some of us within the water here this week. And in fact, the card that came up was no other than the Ace of Cups. We're talking about all of this water and integrating and reintegrating, and we have the card that comes up and shows us love, compassion, a space of caring, a space of creativity, but also a space of new beginnings, a place of bringing things from the subconscious to the conscious, so that way we can bring them, that way we can integrate them, that way we can bring them into some sort of valuable form, right? So the ability to reintegrate, to come to spaces where we already have through Mercury coming back into this space. Water has a history too. So all of these water things that we've mentioned, they all have a history, they all have a past. So the reintegrating can just be bringing things together that have already been there, or maybe they were together before, but they no longer are. If we have a difficult relationship with our parents, maybe there was a time, even if it was just the very moment we were born, that there was a relationship there, right? There was a relationship when you were in your mother's womb within some way. And I realize that's a sensitive topic, so if that's a little triggering, I apologize. But you see what I mean about how there's a history within water, right? Our emotions, our subconscious mind, like there's a history. There's things that have played into that. Those things can be coming up here and reintegrating, bringing them back together this week. We just had the new moon in the sign of Scorpio last week. That was pretty loaded. The sun has moved on, but now two personal planets, Mercury and Venus, are still sitting in this space. They're still reworking things, and they're in this space where, okay, this is all how that has come up. This is all how that has come to our awareness. Where do we go from here? Venus, bring the salve, cool the burn, allow the waters to calm a little bit, right? Venus comes in and maybe she gives a little bit of breathing room, a little bit of space. And we also have Saturn moving into the direct position, forward motion this week too. So that reintegration of the foundations of life, of the systems, of the structures, the boundaries, and the confines, the limits of life, moving forward. We have been in this process since July of internally reviewing and internally looking at the structures, maybe looking at structures within us or looking at the structures around us and how we fit into those pieces, reviewing that, looking at that. That review process is coming to an end, so now it's time to integrate or reintegrate what has come up within the foundations of life for each and every one of us. Long periods of time, so the whole Saturn retrograde doesn't mean that you were like locked in a closet contemplating in things internally, but especially at the stationing points, so like mid-July coming into this week, I bet that some of us are really contemplating and really thinking about some of the structures and the foundations and how they're serving us and how they are not serving us here. So reintegrating Saturn's forward motion this week. I'm really looking forward to this week. The Ace of Cups, when it popped up, I was like, yep, that's perfect. It jumped right out at us. So yeah, let's step into a new watery cycle. Let's step into a new space of healing. Let's step into a new space of actually doing something with the water that has accumulated. If you have water in a water bottle, it's not really doing you any good unless you use it for whatever you need it for. So unless you drink it, or you use it to water a plant, or, you know, to rehydrate your skin, or to wash your hands or something like that. Like you have to put it into motion. Maybe Venus will allow us to kind of do that. And Mercury, within this process of being in this space for a little while, will kind of help that along too. Okay. All right, we're going to get ready to move into the meditation portion. Looking forward to this myself. Okay, I'm going to leave the intention up for just one more moment. I see a process of integration. I already changed it. I see a process of reintegration. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move the intention off. As I do so, you'll see my altar table, and then we have our intentional candle. It's white as always. Purity, clarity, cleansing, really creating a blank slate for you to create whatever you want, or whatever it is that you need, or whatever you want, whatever the conversations and the spaces that you need. That's what our goal is to create here. So white, you can change it to any color that you want, or you can just keep it white as a blank slate for the week here. So I'm going to light the intentional candle. As I do so, I'm going to recite our intentional phrase. Feel free to say it with me in any capacity that you're able to, out loud, in your head, writing it down. I like to keep it on a sticky note that I keep by my computer through the week. So whatever works for you. I see a process of reintegration. Light the intentional candle. As I do so, the flame ignites. As the flame ignites, it begins to grow. As the flame grows, so does our intention. I see a process of reintegration. I see a process of reintegration. Right, if you haven't already, I encourage you to find a nice, comfortable position, seated, laying down, or whatever works for you in the space that you are in. If you're ready to do so, you may go ahead and close your eyes. If you're not quite ready to do so, that's okay. Soften your gaze, allow them to relax. Maybe find a point to gaze towards, but not steering or focusing too intently on any one specific thing, just allowing your eyes to kind of fall gently. And if at any moment they feel like they're ready to close, go ahead and do so. If they don't close through this meditation, that's okay too. Turn your attention inward. As we turn our attention inward, the focus may naturally go towards our breath. As we begin to connect with the breath, we may feel inclined to start changing or altering, maybe feeling like we are improving the breath in some sort of way. For just a short period of time, I encourage you to sit with the breath without changing or altering any portion of it. Just follow the inhales and the exhales as they come. Notice what you notice. And follow along the journey of the inhales and the exhales. If your mind begins to wander, gently bring it back. Do your best to refrain from creating any judgments. Notice what you notice. When you sit with the breath without changing or altering anything, simply walking through the journey as the inhale comes and the exhale goes, there's a level of honoring that comes along with that. Honoring the path and honoring the breath in this moment. When you honor the breath, you honor everything that has come before that breath. Honoring your path, honoring your journey, honoring your body. Taking a moment to sit with your breath where it's at this moment, I now invite you to start deepening the inhales and the exhales. Here I encourage you to have a goal, one simple goal. Allow your only goal to be that each inhale is slightly deeper, slightly longer, and bringing in slightly more air than the inhale that came before it. Similarly, on the exhale, allow for each exhale to release slightly more air, slightly more energy, and slightly more tension than the exhale that came before it. Slowly, your inhales and your exhales integrate, and you move deeper and deeper into the connection with your breath, your mind, and your body. Notice what you notice. If your attention begins to wander, don't stress. Gently bring your attention back to the breath, reminding your mind of where you're at. For many of us, water has been accumulating. There have been experiences, there have been emotions, there have been changing relationships. Perhaps it's our own personal history and past, our own origins that has been accumulating. Perhaps we've been focusing deeply on the path that we've taken. Perhaps the path that others have taken and how that relates to us. Perhaps there have been waves related to childhood or things that relate to our origins of all kinds. The water has been accumulating. Feel that water accumulating on your skin as you continue to breathe in and out. Feel the moisture, feel the wetness. but also feel how it hydrates your skin. Areas that maybe were once dry have now been refilled, maybe multiple times. Perhaps there has been so much water that has filled that it has poured over and it has rained or it has flooded. Perhaps there is a gentle condensation that can be noticed. But that water, those droplets that are accumulating on your skin, they can hydrate without oversaturating. Water also moves easily. Those droplets that are accumulating on you, one swipe of your hand across your arm and they move into a different position. Perhaps they don't leave, but they move or they start to transform. How do you see the water droplets transforming? Are they hydrating different areas of your skin? Are they penetrating deeper into your being or floating around the surface? Perhaps the water is dripping and there is puddles around your feet. Too much water, too much moisture can cause mildew, even mold, and eventually rot. So that water does have to be dispersed. Your body absorbs the water that it needs to feel hydrated, to feel moisturized, to keep your skin buoyant and your organs working properly. Feel the ability to create new beginnings, to create something from your experiences. We all come from water. Life cannot survive without water. Every human comes from an amniotic sac filled with water in its mother's womb. And a seed cannot grow without water. So as the water penetrates your pores, hydrates your being, your body only absorbs as much as it needs to. The excess begins to evaporate. And as the water begins to evaporate, there is another realization connected to water. Water is of both the earth, the physical realm, and of the sky, or the otherworldly, energetic realm. We can see this in the significations of water, our connections to our ancestors, to creative energies, the spaces our intuition can bring us. But we see it here physically as the water begins to evaporate off our skin, moves into water vapor in the air. So that excess moisture that was once on our skin in the physical world, in the material realm, as a physical manifestation, evaporates into thin air. We can no longer see it with the naked eye, and the water elevates up to the clouds, evaporating into the sky, seemingly out of sight, but still surrounding us all. That's how subtle water can be. And now that water that was in the physical form is now in the sky, waiting to rain back down when the time is right. There is an integration and a reintegration process within the water element. That reintegration happens as the water comes from the place above to the place below, or from the place below to the place above. Water is still water, whether it's above or below. It just may be in a slightly different form or a different state. As above, so below, if we look deeply. The water surrounds us all in the ways that we see and the ways that we don't see. If you have felt dehydrated or flooded, if you have felt like the water has left things excessively wet or with too much moisture, may this week allow you to see a process of reintegrating the water into the form where it's most useful. If the water droplets need to be on your skin and hydrate you, if you need to drink the water and feel it entering your being, if it's time for some of the water to evaporate and move back up to the clouds, back up to the sky, may it be so. Thank you, thank you, thank you for the blessing that is water. And thank you, thank you, thank you for being here in this space with us. I appreciate each and every one of you that show up when you can, every time. Whether it's once in a while, we have people that show up every few months, and it's just absolutely lovely. We have people that are here every single week and have never missed a single meditation, and that is absolutely lovely too. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. With the reintegration, something new, a new level of things, right? Bringing things into some sort of form. So whatever that water transformation needs to be. I have been thinking a lot more about the physical ways that we can relate to water in this material world, because it gives us a big insight, with just like with all of the elements, of the symbolic and the metaphysical qualities. I've been using it to kind of explain elements and elemental theory to my daughter, who's 8, and it has really, really kind of helped. So, yeah, the Ace of Cups is something new, a new level, new beginnings, but supported, creativity. If there's something that you've been wanting to do, if there's something you've been wanting to express, maybe this week with Venus moving through that grand water trine, you will be able to do so. So, yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Happy birthday to all of you Sagittarius suns. I will see you next week when Venus will be entering the sign of Sag. And yeah, next week a weekly video will be out on Saturday. Intention will be out Friday, and we will meet here Sunday. Oh, happy Thanksgiving week to all of you that are celebrating. It's Thanksgiving this Thursday here in the United States. So if you are not available next weekend, remember that there's always a replay, but we will still be here next Sunday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and watch the weekly video. And I will see you back here next week. Take care. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.